Alright, today we're going to be doing transformations of shapes. Our objectives is that students will transform the graphs of various shapes based upon the values of A, H, and K. So the first thing we need to talk about are what do A, H, and K do to our graph. A will stretch / shrink the graph depending on the A value. It'll either make it bigger or smaller. And it could also flip the graph. If the A value is negative, it'll flip. H moves the graph left or right, which is horizontally, so think H horizontal. K moves the graph up or down. So here's our original graph that we're given. The first thing we need to do is find some key points on there. I like to use the endpoints and the points where it changes direction. So those four blue points are going to be the points that I use, and I'm going to use those to make a chart. So this one is at -3, -3. This is at -2, -1, 0, -1, and 2, -5. Since this is our original graph, we're going to be referring to this chart in each problem. So if you see here, we have A equals 2, H equals 0, and K equals 0. Because H and K are 0, they're not going to change our graph at all. It's going to move 0 places left or right and 0 spaces down or up. So we just need to worry about A. A always gets multiplied to the Y values. So I'm going to take my chart and I'm going to make a new one down here. The X's don't change. They're going to stay the same. And then I'm going to take all my Y values and multiply them by A, which is 2. So they would become -6, -2, -2, and -10. Now, since H and K are 0, I'm going to graph these points. So -3, -6, -2, -2, 0, -2, and 2, -10. And then I'm going to connect my dots. And see, it's like I took my graph and stretched it out. If A equals 2 stretched out my graph, what do you think A equals 1/2 will do to it? That's right, it's going to shrink it. It's going to make it smaller. So again, I'm going to take my chart. My X's will stay the same as my original chart from up here. We're done with this problem, so we're not going to use this chart. So up here, -3, -2, 0, and 2. And then we're going to multiply the Y's by A, which is half. So half of -3 is -1.5. Half of -1 is -0.5. Same thing again. And half of -5 is -2.5. And now I graph. -3 down 1.5. -2 down half. 0 down half. And 2 down 2.5. So it kind of looks like somebody stepped on our picture and smushed it. So it's shrank. It's not as tall. All right. Now this part, I just copied it over so that we could see it on each page. This time we have A's that equal 1. Multiplying by 1 doesn't change anything, so we don't have to worry about a this time. Since h moves left and right, and that has to do with the x values, we're going to add h to all the x's, and we're going to add k to all the y's. So -3 plus 3 would be 0. -2 plus 3 is 1. 0 plus 3 is 3. And 2 plus 3 is 5. Then we're going to add k, which is 2, to all the y values. So -3 plus 2 is -1. -1 plus 2 is +1. -1 plus 2 is +1 again. And -5 plus 2 is -3. And now we can plot. So 0, -1, 1, 1, 3, 1. Oops. 0, -1, not -1, -1. And 5, -3. So now if you notice, our shape didn't change in size, it just moved. So let's try it again with number 4. We're going to add h to all the x's and y to all the k, or k to all the y's. So -3 and -2 is -5. -2 and -2 is -4. 0 and -2 is -2. And 2 and -2 is 0. -3 and 4 is 1. -1 and 4 is 3. And 3. And -5 and 4 is -1. So -5, 1. -4, 3. -2, 3. And 0, -1. For our last two problems, we're going to put it all together. So, what letter is at the beginning of the alphabet? A. So A is at the beginning of the alphabet. Start at the beginning. We're going to start with A. So we're going to keep our x's, and we're going to multiply our y's by A. So I'd have -3, -2, 0, and 2. And my y's would become -6, -2, -2, and -10. Now I'm going to use this chart to use my h and my k. So x plus h, and I'm going to use my ya values to add with k. So my x's, -2 and -3 would be -5, -2 and -2 is -4, -2 and 0 is -2, and -2 and +2 is 0. And then I'm going to add 5 to all of these. So -1, 3, 3, and -10. Sorry, -5. The last chart you write is the chart that you're going to graph. So -5, -1, -4, 3, -2, 3, and 0, -5. So the graph got stretched out and it moved over and up. All right, our last example. We're going to do y times a first. So anything times -1 changes the sign, so these are all going to become positives. And then x plus h, and y times a plus the k values. Since h is 0, adding 0 to any of these things won't change it. And then we're going to add -2 to all the ya values. So 1, negative 1, negative 1, and 3. So let's plot those. Negative 3, 1, negative 2, negative 1, 0, negative 1, and 2, 3. So this time, because our A was negative, it took our picture and flipped it upside down. That's all for today. Fill in your summary